Welcome to the Circle Sessions featuring the Circle of Experts. Each week, one of the Circle of Experts joins me to talk about some critical aspects of growing your podcast. We focus on marketing, social media, monetization, and website design to help you implement all of these together. Well, the Circle of Experts are Yasmin Robles from Robles Designs, Tonnisha English Amamu of TJE Communications, and Don the Idea Guy. I'm Brett Johnson from Circle 270 Media, podcast consultants. This week, Tonnisha is here from the Circle of Experts. Tonnisha is on a mission to help small businesses level the playing field through digital marketing solutions. Tonnisha, thanks for joining me again today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I love this idea that you want to talk about in this episode because I think we've all at least have heard of this term, but maybe we haven't taken a dive into it and kind of go, what does it really mean? The term edutainment for content. So obviously this has gotten on your radar. So talk a little bit about how you found it, or what intrigued you about when you saw it, and going forward with that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure who coined the term, but I feel like edutainment is something that we have experienced probably since like kindergarten.
Right.
I mean, even with learning the ABCs, like it's a song that we sing that's teaching us the alphabet essentially. So edutainment is education plus entertainment. And so this form of content, now that it has a word, has been something that a lot of social media marketers and content creating teams have been using to promote their services or business or products. And so I was looking through Sprout Social, of course, and checking out some recent reports. And they have a report that says 66% of social media users find edutainment to be the most engaging type of brand content. So people, are really loving when brands kind of like take the seriousness out of things and find a way to educate people on what exactly it is that they're selling or offering in a way that's fun, but also informative. And so immediately when I think about edutainment here locally in Columbus, Ohio, I think about the Columbus Library. If you are not following them on social media, whether you have a library card or not, the content is just hilarious. I mean, I can't really give a good example, but they do a great job of not only just having fun about the library, which I feel like when you think about the library, it's not necessarily this exciting place to be.
Right.
Traditionally it's supposed to be quiet, which they actually did a video about that too in the past, about how the library is not necessarily a quiet place all the time anymore. But they do a great job to not only, of course, tell you about how at the library you can check out books. We all know that. But it offers a lot. I mean, even for small business owners, you can go to the library to do research on your business. They do have a business center, a nonprofit business center as well at the main library. And that's something that I honestly didn't know.
Yeah.
I did not know that there was a business center at the library.
It seems like they do a lot of stuff on the low key almost, and then they do it well. Yeah.
Yes. So that is a lot of what their social media is. It's taking those little things that if you're like a frequent library goer, you probably know, and making sure that they are essentially telling everybody, hey, did you know that we have this at the library?
Yeah.
They're doing a series right now I've seen on one of their security guards at the main library. I believe that he's also an artist.
Okay.
And so they have some of his work featured. And they've been doing a lot of little fun videos with him. And so that's just a great example of how, yes, it's the library. You go there to get books, but there's other stuff there for you to engage with.
Right.
And as I was also thinking about this topic, you know how much I love true crime, but I thought that was another great example of edutainment that might help people kind of understand what that means. And so with the true crime podcast, the education part is that we are learning about real stories.
Yeah.
And we're also gaining some knowledge about how crimes are solved and maybe even some survival skills. And then also we're learning how, if we see something, how do we go about saying something? How do we go about staying vigilant in our lives? And I think the entertainment part comes from the ones who are narrating these podcasts, and they're making it, those cliffhangers that you want to hang on to, like, well, what happened? Did they solve the crime? What happened? Um, have mentioned Payne Lindsay from Tenderfoot TV with his Up and Vanish podcast. They were able to use the entertainment of a podcast to solve a 10-year-old missing persons case. I would say probably one of the most famous true crime podcasts was Serial.
Right.
Were you ever a fan of
Oh
Serial?
yeah, that was one
Yeah,
that was one that kind of drew me into podcasting as well, along with a lot of others. But it's
same.
just that coincidence of time that it was, yes, definitely a good
Yes,
mixture
yeah.
of education around the case,
Mhm.
and
Around
then
the
the
case.
storytelling, which was the entertainment piece of it, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I think it's a loose use of the word entertainment, but it's that we were
Yes,
entertained by listening to it though, because it was a
exactly.
story well told.
For
That was the
sure.
entertainment of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And through that, Sarah Koenig and Julie Snyder, they were able to help get Adnan Syed, his
Yeah.
sentencing was overturned and he
Hmm.
was released
Yeah.
through some of the work from that podcast. So I think when we think about edutainment, when the entertainment part, I feel like we probably all can do that pretty well.
Yeah.
The education part, I feel like sometimes we might overthink because we just assume, like for me working in marketing, well, everybody knows the difference between, reach and impressions. So, like, but you have to remember that that's not the case. You're the expert in whatever it is that your podcast is about, and not everybody knows that. So, even those little things that may seem like common knowledge to you and maybe other people in your industry may not be the case for other people. So, I have come up with 3 steps
Yeah.
to creating some quality edutainment content.
Okay.
Number one, I would say to speak confidently about what you know. So, with me being in the marketing industry, using Yasmin, for example, I feel like people confuse like SEO, marketing, advertising as like all one thing. And while they are under an umbrella that they can all be connected, my knowledge of social media and email marketing does not really translate to SEO.
Right.
I'm not an SEO expert. And so when I go to create edutainment content, I would be focusing on that social media, the email, the content development. So as you are thinking about creating content for yourself, to really just stick to topics that you know, because then it'll be easier for you to make it funny because
Right.
you know the ins and outs. You may know some of the insider industry jokes that you can kind of play into when creating content. So just really think about topics that you feel confident about. Like if right now you got put on the spot and said, tell me 3 things I should do in X, Y, and Z industry, you would be able to talk about, stick to those things.
Right.
And then number 2 is to be authentic. I feel like I've used the authenticity word a lot on the podcast, but I feel like this is something that uh, is often overlooked. And in today, with social media being so saturated
Yeah.
within almost every industry, it's really important that we are authentic in who we are. And so if you're not a person that is, a jokester and you like to do the TikTok dances and stuff, you don't have to do that to be able to essentially entertain people and have a good time with creating your content. I listen to a podcast pretty much every single day. It's called The Daily. It is a podcast by the New York Times. I prefer when Michael Barboa is the host because his voice it's like very monotone, and to me, I love it. Some people don't. If you go on
Sure.
Twitter, some people don't like his voice. They, think that it's boring. But I like it. So if one day Michael gets on the podcast and he's like super like, and to me sometimes you can tell when he's upbeat and chipper, but
Yeah.
like if he was like doing something outside of the norm, I'd be like, whoa, like what is happening here? This isn't like the usual. I mean, it even took me a while to get adjusted, after he had a kid, that there were like two other hosts now. I'm like, no, where's Michael?
Right. Right. Right.
So,
Yep.
so, just really sticking to who you are.
Hmm.
And then with all that being said, just really not overthinking it. Trying to, you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of props and do this like over the top thing. It's really just you and your phone, or maybe if you have somebody to film it for you, it doesn't have to be a huge production. People enjoy, just seeing that raw content. I think Yasmin also does a really good job with edutainment for ropeless designs as well.
Yeah.
So that's another great example. So yeah, speak confidently about what you know, be authentic. Don't overthink it. It's meant to be fun. It's not, this super serious buttoned up thing. And a lot of consumers are finding it really exciting to just see people, a little more relaxed and having fun with what they already love to do anyway.
Right. Yeah, I think if you combine those three things you talked about, if one of those are a weak link, you probably
Yeah.
will not continue in the long run because
Yeah.
it's just too hard. It's almost
Hmm.
you're being a fake self, and you
Right.
just won't want to do it because the well's empty. You don't know you don't know where else
Exactly.
to go with because you're not, especially the third one, of just
Hmm.
it's
Not
that
overthinking
do it,
it.
yeah, don't overthinking it. It's just a lot of content creation I've noticed too, and I tell podcasters
Hmm.
this, and you've told them as well too. Is just do it, just do it
Yeah.
because it's
Hmm.
that habitual uh, creation of a formula that helps you, and it's easy to fall off that
Exactly.
train. It really is, but it's
Right.
that get used to what you want to do, and if but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I think at least push the boundaries for yourself too. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not this year was my year to get into video, do more
Yeah.
of this. Record podcast sessions, not necessarily do video of me walking in the woods and talking, that sort of thing. But
Right.
it's that okay, when I do a podcast session, if at all possible, do video with it as well, knowing there's some
Yeah.
value to have that video with it and to get used to seeing myself being on a
Hmm.
podcast, that sort of thing, because it's not my thing.
Yeah.
I'm not big on that, but it's that. But I also know I have the confidence now doing it. I'm okay with it. Now, what next steps I take, I have no clue. But it's that
Right.
again, having fun, authenticity, and just being true to yourself
Hmm.
and what you
Hmm.
want to do. So no,
Yes, and I
yeah.
also think there are clearly different forms of entertainment. Some people think podcasts are boring.
Hmm.
Some people still listen to like FM or AM radio. Some people like watching TV shows. Some people would rather binge a TV show. So when we think about entertainment as well, when we talk about staying true to you, stay true to the type of entertainment that is comfortable for you as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you got to learn all TikTok dances while you name off like the top three, like, marketing tools or something. Like, you don't have to do that. But think about, your audience. What is entertainment for them? What does that look like? And then to your point, maybe pushing those boundaries a little bit. But again, the stats said 66% of social media users. So there's still, I'm terrible at math, but like another like 30-ish% of people that don't care about that.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that you have to jump into it now. But I would suggest, pushing your boundaries a little bit with creating content, doing some things outside of the box, not always just posting a picture and a caption. Maybe it is a video.
Hmm.
Maybe it is, a day in the life of a podcaster. Maybe it's showing people, how you do your podcast setup. I mean, that's still education. You're showing people, how you prepare for your podcast. I've seen Other podcasters share the type of microphones that they use, if they use like mixing boards or anything. I mean, all of that is education as well as entertaining for people who, like to see those behind the scenes type of content.
Right.
So.
Yeah. We had an episode, a few months ago in regards to you focusing on days that you dedicate for photo shoots. And I think that's
Yep.
that's a great edutainment type of content that you're kind of
Yeah.
peeling back, going, this is what I do. I suggest that you
Yeah.
do as well too. And this is how I do it and have fun with it. That
Right.
again, that's a form of edutainment because of,
Exactly.
and I also, when you're talking about, doing these things and keeping these 3 steps in mind, it's also branding yourself too. So kind of keep that
Yeah.
in mind, that don't go too far with it, because if that's not what you want
Uh-huh.
to be known as, don't go there.
Right.
So
Mhm.
so so
Mhm.
that gives you the opportunity to say no. To say, no, I'm
Right.
not doing that. That's not my brand. But what can I do that
Right.
maybe is similar, that would be fun, but not that far? Because I don't want to ruin my brand
Right.
by doing that. So
Exactly.
so give yourself those allowances to say no.
Mhm.
But then also keep it secure to yourself that I'm okay with
Yeah.
this. I'm okay. This is
Definitely.
the way my business is, the way my podcast is, the way my social media needs to be. But
Yeah.
so set the boundaries. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Good. Well, if they want to, a listener wants to talk to you a little bit more about edutainment, about what your thoughts are, because those are 3 really good steps, and maybe
Yeah.
expand on those a bit more. How can they contact you?
Yes, you can go to my website, tjecommunications.com. I do offer free consultations. So feel free to schedule some time if you just want to talk more about maybe some of your edutainment content ideas. And yeah, they're 100% free, no sale. Just come and chat and talk through your ideas.
Yeah. We do the same thing at Circle 270 Media as well too. You go to mypodcastguy.com, set up a time, talk. Let's flesh some things out in regards to what you want to do with content. Focus a little bit more on edutainment, or just you just don't like where your podcast is going. That's a really good start, actually, and kind of see where the weak points and strong points are, and moving forward with it. So you can go to my calendar as well at mypodcastguy.com. Thanks, Tonnisha. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.